Hello Internet, this is Scott with Scott's Garage, and this is the 1969 Mustang Resto Mod project, and this is the 351 Cleveland that I rebuilt and dropped into this coupe. And in this episode, I want to talk about some of the overheating problems that the 351 Cleveland are prone to, and then solutions. Now, when I built this 351 and dropped it into this Mustang, and had the original initial startup and that, and testing it and setting the timing and that, I did have some issues with it getting hotter than I'd like it to run, and I just did some research, and I have completely overcome the overheating problems, and I'd like to share that with you. First of all, why do the 351s overheat quite often? Part of it is their design. These Clevelands were initially NASCAR engines, and Ford was into trying to, have the fastest car and engine in their day. And one of the things they came up with was a bypass with the water pump. Normally, engine water pump, and you have your thermostat that fits in the water neck there, and the engine has to heat up to the right temperature, whatever it is, 195, whatever thermostat setting you place, and that the thermostat stays closed until it reaches the operating temperature. It opens up, and then the water flows into the radiator, and the coolant cools the engine. But Ford thought it would be smart to, at the very least, cool the heads while the rest of the engine is heating up, because those heads get extremely hot right away. So the engine started, and there's the pump, there's a bypass, or there's a flow of coolant constantly in the engine. And then what's supposed to happen is that when the rest of the engine heats up, that underneath the thermostat, there's a bypass plate. And the thermostat, when it opens, is actually supposed to shut the bypass. Now, what happens is that the restrictor plate doesn't fully close, or the thermostat isn't the right thermostat, and it doesn't seal that correctly. And so what happens is that there's a constant flow of coolant even when the thermostat opens, and because it's constantly flowing around the heads and not going through the radiator, it causes or contributes to the overheating. So what I tried was modifying a thermostat. You have to have this type of thermostat if you want to go original. However, the original thermostats are no longer available. Just a handful of companies that produce them, and every time I tried to order, it was just back order, and I couldn't get it done. So I purchased this one that is the right style. However, it still didn't fit the restrictor plate tight enough. This is the original brass restrictor plate. So what I did is I modified this. I put a cap on it. Just went to the local hardware store and bought a brass tube that had a cap on it, and I basically jerry-rigged it. And I was satisfied with how it fit. Basically, as it would expand, it would seal it off. But my main concern was that this would not hold in time and would come off and cause problems. So I basically got rid of the original bypass restrictor plate, at least took it off. By the way, if you take off the original plate, don't throw these away. These sell on eBay for as much as $60. So don't throw that puppy away. Instead, I went to West Coast Classic Cougar, and I purchased this water restrictor plate. You see a picture of it. Very similar to the original, same size, just that it's filled in just a very small hole that I believe just helps some of the air that's in the system to escape. So that's one of the things I did, is just put that the water restrictor plate in there. Probably the biggest thing that helped overcome the running too hot problem was purchasing the Tri-Flow radiator from Eastwood, and they claim that it lowers the temperature is 24 degrees more than the typical radiator, and it's just a superior radiator, plain and simply. So basically you have the the inflow, the coolant flows through the radiator, drops down as the fan is moving to a level here, and it goes across again the fins again, drops down, crosses a third time before it exits. And with these two modifications, this 351 Cleveland runs perfectly in the perfect temperature. It's right around 195, and it just doesn't vary from that at all. And this is Phoenix, Arizona. So again, if you have overheating problems, consider those things. One final note: if you have an electric fan, I do recommend getting the shroud for the fan. This came with Eastwood, which really makes it more efficient. And the other thing about the electric fan is that whatever you do, do not hook the electric fan to what was the original brown wire. That brown wire is fed off of the pink wire on the ignition, and that pink wire lowers this resistor wire. It lowers the voltage. I think it drops it down, from 12 volts, I believe around 7 volts or so. And so you don't want to feed the fan with lower voltage. It's not going to spin like it should. What I've done on this is the ignition, the on directly feeds a relay, and there's a thermostat now on the block, and when it reaches operating temperature, then the fan kicks in, and it just instantly lowers the temperature, and this 351 Cleveland is operating precisely as it should. So again, this is Scott with Scott's Garage. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit like.